Welcome to Chargeheads UK. We've got an interview coming up with Richard Morgan, aka Moggy from Electric Classic Cars, the very famous EV conversion company in Wales. I can't wait to get started, and I hope you enjoy it. Aha, Richard.
Ta-da!
There you are. It feels so natural me seeing you on the screen because we've been seeing you so much, you know, on YouTube and Vintage Voltage. It's great.
Sorry about that.
You must be absolutely knackered, right?
Nah, it's all good fun, isn't it? I don't know. My laptop camera seems to be about as dirty as my blooming toolbox. In a minute, I can clean that up for you.
The resolution just went up by quite a bit since you did.
I'm now in 4K.
Well, thank you so much, Moggy, for taking time out of your busy diary. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Especially, like I said, you know, you've got so much going on online and with the business. And if people didn't know how much time and effort, you know, electric conversions take in the first place, I'm sure you're very well. I'm sure you know very well about that sort of thing. So,
oh yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it right, it takes time.
Yes.
I mean, even if you're going to do a half-assed job, it takes time. But if you're going to do it right, it takes a really long time. I mean, in fact, my office background is quite boring because I'm in my office. May as well quickly show you.
Yeah, go for it.
There you go.
Oh wow. Only literally a few steps away from EV conversion heaven.
Yeah, there you go. I think we've got about 16 cars in the workshop at the moment. So,
wow.
We're full capacity at 18, but we've got 16 at the moment. So.
Awesome. No, thanks for showing us that.
That's all right. It'll be
so,
a bit more interesting just seeing my head all the time.
Well, like I said, yeah, thanks for speaking to us today. It was off the back of a conversation I was having with Ralph, the builder, saying, "Oh, do you know what? We should speak to Richard and find out a little bit more about, you know, electric classic cars." And I've got a load of questions. Having watched a few of your YouTube episodes recently, and if anyone's not watching, you know, Electric Classic Cars YouTube channel, get involved because there's so much good content on there. It's really good, Moggy. Honestly, it's spot on.
Cheers. It doesn't take much for me to just talk. So putting the camera in front of me is quite easy. It's just like, you know, I'll just spurt out like stuff for half an hour. And the difficulty, as you probably know, is finding the time to actually do the camera work and then editing it afterwards and posting it out, and that's what I'm not good at. So I've got a friend of mine also called Tim that's helped me out with that. So yeah, thanks. The YouTube stuff seems to be going well.
Yeah, with me it's normally late night with a beer. So that's why the editing's not that great, you know. Bit wobbly. But yeah, no, I wanted to got a few questions for you. It sounds like you've got a question Q&A session coming up on your channel. So yeah. Hopefully I won't be repeating some of the questions on there. I'm sure, bearing in mind there's quite a lot of people that do their own builds who watch your channel. They'll probably go into a bit more detail. So if anybody wants more detail than the more general questions I'm probably going to ask, make sure you jump on the channel. So yeah, where did it all come about, Moggy? Because where was the inspiration? What was the light bulb moment of, do you know what, this is what I'm going to start doing, and this is what I want to do for, you know, for my job to, you know.
It kind of just crept up on me. So I mean, I've been into classic cars all my life. So since I was the age of 17, when I crashed my mum's Golf a week after my test, and then they got me a welder and a written off Beetle for Christmas and my birthday, and said, right, there you go, build that. Since then, I've always had classic cars as daily drivers. And, you know, apart from the odd company car that, you know, I've had, but the cars I've always owned have been before I was born. So I was 73, and I've always owned cars before 73 as usable daily classics. Right. And as you get older, unfortunately, that's what happens. As you get old, Yeah. Your enjoyment of lying on your back on a cold concrete floor in December, trying to figure out why a starter motor is not working on a car when you've got to get to work, it kind of gets a bit old. So I knocked the rallying on the head at the same time. So I was doing the British Historic Championship in an old Porsche 914.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a picture of it.
Very smart. Yeah, no, I've seen a bit of footage and a few pictures of that before. No, it's you know, yeah. I'm massively into, you know, driving and yeah, motorsport for sure. But yeah, no, sorry, go on.
So I knocked the rallying on the head. And I used to build my own race engines and stuff like that. And I thought, right, it's never a good idea for people like me to have tinker time in the workshop, because you know, with rallying, you do a rally, and then before the next rally you've got to fix something, you've got to upgrade, you're always doing something.
Yeah.
And my fingers got itchy in the workshop, and I thought, right, well, what shall I do now? I haven't got the rally car to mess around with. So I thought, right, I used to do drag racing, so I thought, right, well, I'll take my supercharged Porsche motor that I had in the back of the Beetle, and I thought, right, I'll put a turbo on top. And as I was kind of like thinking about how to do this, and kind of looking at the Delta S4, which is a Group B rally car in the 80s, which had a supercharger and a turbo on, and designing the wastegate system, all the complexities that come with that, I just stumbled across an electric converted Beetle in the States. I think it might have been one that Michael had done over at EV West. I just stumbled across it. And I thought, wow, that makes sense. And my day job at the time was in the energy efficiency industry and wind turbines and motors. So I knew how much power there is in electric motors. Yeah. And I just thought, wow, this really complicated beast of an engine that I'm building, which is probably going to give me, I don't know, 250, 300 horsepower, but it's going to take thousands of man hours to design and build, and then probably hundreds of man hours a year just to keep alive.
Yeah.
Or I can go with an electric motor, which has 2 bearings in, you know, no oil changes, filter changes, tune-ups, nothing. Basically, once it goes in, it's kind of like, you know, maintenance free. So I can put that in. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. So I literally just thought, right, I'll do that instead, because I've never done that before. But what I have done is built lots and lots of different, you know, funky engines before. So, and I always liked something new. So I thought, I'll try electric conversion. And this was about 6 or 7 years ago now. And then the first time I ever got to drive it and turned onto the main road and put my foot down, and you felt that instant, like, bloody hell, whoa! And that was it for me. Petrol was dead. From that moment onwards, I thought, wow, that's a lot of power.
If you've been tinkering with superchargers and turbos, I mean, as soon as I hear that, I think of cars like the Nissan Micra Super Turbo. And, you know, I used to have a Daihatsu Charade GTTI 1 litre turbo, which, you know, really got me into, you know, performance cars. But it's interesting that you've, you know, experienced all the different ICE motors, and, you know, once you experience electric, that was the way forward for you. And yeah, certainly it's something that, yeah, I just love the electric feel that you get. Yes, I mean, there's the noise factors, which I know a lot of petrol heads miss, but it's but we'll come on.
I thought I would miss that. So I mean, I'm an massive petrol head. You know, from building hot rods to you know, doing roof chops on classic cars, to you name it, I've done it, basically, from racing a lot. There's not much I've not done. And I thought I would miss the noise, you know, but the reason I don't miss the noise, by the way, it's replaced with a different noise. It's not as if it's quiet. There's it's like a high pitched, like gas turbine. It's a really cool noise. I really do like the noise.
Yeah.
But the reason why I don't miss the open trumpets on some Webers and Delautos and stuff like that is because it's replaced by so many positives. You kind of instantly forget, and the customers do as well, when they come back from initial drive. So did you miss the noise? And I'm like, no, never mind the noise. Bloody hell, and they go on about all the positives. And that's why you don't miss the noise, because all the positives completely make you forget about the fact that, you know, it was a noisy thing. And who says the noise is good anyway? I mean, before, you know, cars were invented, you know, nobody would have said that's a nice noise. In fact, when cars were first, you know, on the roads, everybody like was complaining about the noise and the fact that it scares the horses, and, you know, it's a horrible noise when it goes past my house, etc., etc. There's this horrible noise. and somewhere along the line, our ears have got used to it, and somewhere along the lines, people think it's a good noise. It's not really once you start thinking about it.
No, and I mean something that is probably a little bit more. I'm certainly more conscious of is the smell. So much more recently, you know, when you can smell the different fuel, different engine cars go past. You know it's a diesel. You know it's a petrol. It's you know, outside my kids' school. You know, someone just had a lady leaving their Nissan Qashqai, which have got awful CO2 emission diesel engine. I just left it on, got out of the car, walked their kid to, you know, the line, and still got it chugging out the plumes of smoke right next to a school where all the kids are. So yeah, I think that's something.
Well, the other thing I find funny is the typical person in the pub that complains stupidly about, oh, electric cars are too quiet, blah, 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 blah. They're also the people that probably 5 years ago would complain about a boy racer going past with a loud exhaust on. Oh, bloody hell, these boy racers, it makes a hell of a noise. You know, so complainers will always complain, I find. And
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, something like a, you know, Vauxhall Nova with a big bore 4 on the back. I certainly, my first car was a VW, little Polo Mark IV, and that definitely had a cherry bomb exhaust on the back. You know, you could hear me coming from miles off. All my cars have always been loud, you see.
Yeah, mine.
So, yeah, it's, I suppose it comes to
the noisiest engine I had was a 2-litre Beetle engine with an Eaton supercharger on from a Mercedes SLK. It had a suck-through system, so basically it was an open on the supercharger side. So we had this real high pitch like this from the supercharger, coupled to, like, you know, some ridiculous 4-inch exhaust with pretty much a straight through Magnaflow type muffler on.
Oh yeah, so, Magnaflow. I had one of them. Yeah.
So it made a hell of a noise, and then you also had a wastegate on there as well. So that thing was just a monster, but from power, but also noise. But
yeah, no,
it's all about the power.
I had a Magnaflow exhaust on my Honda Integra DC2, and that thing was just ridiculous. But funnily enough, this wasn't going to be my first question, but seeing as though we're on the noise factor, I might as well naturally go to this question. What's your thoughts on fake noise for electric cars?
Ridiculous.
Okay, so I can understand it for new cars, but for EV, so for classics, what's ridiculous?
It's like putting horse noises on a car. I mean, it's just pointless.
That would be hilarious.
Or in the 70s, for those people that are old enough out there, they'll remember that when electric fires came out and they had this, like, mock effect, like coal and log things on, and they had these crackling noises just to simulate, you know, an old fire. It's an electric fire with some red bulbs in underneath some, you know, some cowling looked like, but it had this crackling noise. It's rubbish. I mean, you know, nobody puts a Merlin Spitfire noise on a jet. You know, why on earth would you put a petrol engine a noise on an electric car?
It's a good analogy. I like that. Well, from my point of view, I'm not a massive fan of the fake exhaust noise, and I'm not going to mention any particular cars, Moggy. Be unprofessional. But
I can do it for you if you want.
No, don't do it. But yeah, so it's something that I was thinking about doing on the my TVR build, was to maybe a slightly amplified electric noise, because I like the electric noise. A car that which I will name, one of the cars that I was in, which is Nick from Eco Classics, his Porsche 911 electric car. The noise of that, and I'm sure it'd be exactly the same sort of noise that you get from your high performance EV conversions. It's just a nice kind of, just lets you know that there's something there, you know, making that power.
Any classic car will have a bit of motor noise, because in modern cars they're very well soundproofed. Even, you know, if you look at the Tesla a front motor, for instance, it's got a jacket around it which also subdues the sound a little bit. Right. And in a classic car, you know, there's no sound jackets around the motors, but equally, you know, there's hardly any soundproofing in the things. And, you know, it's just literally, you know, the noise can reverberate through the car. And I like that. I like a classic car to have noises.
Yeah.
One thing we always notice is whenever you convert a classic car, you'll hear the other noises that you never heard before. So there'll be this rattle from the door that you thought, that wasn't there before. Well, it probably was, but you've never heard it before. So you'll hear all these other suspension creaks and noises as well.
This is the beauty of having a classic car. Is with a new car, if you hear a noise, you think, oh, it shouldn't be there. But with a classic car, it's like you accept the noises, don't you? You know?
Yeah. And you hear the wind noise a lot more as well, I find.
Yeah.
Because before you'll hear the engine noise, and now you can hear this whistling noise from the windscreen wipers and stuff like that. It all adds to it.
No, absolutely. It's all about the experience. So, we talked about your inspiration for converting cars in the first place, but what's your favourite car to convert? Because you've obviously done a few conversions now.
My favourite car to convert is one I haven't done before. And what I mean by that is I like to do different things. So if I said my favorite car to convert is a VW Beetle, well, it's my favorite car, obviously. I love Beetles, but my favorite car to convert is always the next weird and wonderful car. So my favorite car. Yeah, exactly. So we like challenges here. And although we do repeatable builds like, Beetles, we've always got a couple of Beetles going through the workshop, Minis, Land Rovers especially seem to be really popular. The one conversion I'm looking forward to in the future, we're just getting our teeth into now, is the Ferrari Testarossas.
Yes.
So we've got 4 Ferrari Testarossas to do. So I'm really looking forward to getting my teeth into those. And the conversion that we're doing at the moment, which I'm really enjoying, so this is a present conversion right now, is the VW T3 Synchro, like a camper.
Yes.
So 4-wheel drive camper. And that's a cool one because we've never done that before. And equally, the guy wants long range. He wants an overlander type spec. So I'm enjoying, converting the gas hob to an induction hob, and then getting a big enough inverter to be able to cope with an induction hob, which takes a lot of electricity, etc. Yeah. So, introducing new things that I've not done before, and new challenges, and a solar inverter because we've got solar panels on the roof and stuff like that. That's what I enjoy. New and fresh challenges.
Yeah, you've picked my favourite VW camper van shape, to be honest. But as you know, I've got a Toyota camper van. So when you want a really big challenge, it's not exactly classic. You know where to come. Hopefully in the years to come, I do plan to convert it at some point if the technology is there. What have you found to be the most difficult car to convert to electric so far?
I would say it's the Mini, and the reason why is because it was such a packaging challenge to get everything in there. I mean, it's called a Mini for a reason, obviously, and to try to get a powerful motor in there and a decent sized battery pack was a real packaging challenge, but it was also one of the most satisfying cars we've ever done, because what came out was an absolute fantastic car. I mean, we managed to squeeze in a Tesla small drive unit in the front, which is 300 horsepower if you turn everything up to 11. We had, a rear boot, which was a bigger rear boot capacity-wise than the original Mini Cooper, which used to have a tank either side. So it was a bigger boot than that. So we actually ended up with a really powerful yet usable Mini that was the same weight as a 1990s classic Mini. So hell of a challenge getting it all in there. Fantastic end result, and I was over the moon with that one.
It must be an absolute monster to drive when it's in the track mode, because I did notice it had a track mode when I spotted it at the last time I actually met you, which was at the Classic Car Show at NEC. That was it's a beautiful looking car, absolutely.
I mean, the track mode is definitely track only mode. It's an absolute beast of a thing. When you open it all up, and obviously traction control is still switched on, it's a hell of a thing.
Some serious tyre emissions going on, basically.
Well, no, with traction control on, it's keeping control of the traction, but that he wanted, and rightly so, original 10-inch wheels and tyres and stuff on it. So he didn't want the big arches and stuff, which we could have done and got more grip to the road.
Yeah.
So when the grip is there with the grippy track tires on a hot day around, say, Anglesey or something like that, it's one hell of a car. But obviously when you put it in road mode, it's down to, I think it's 100 horsepower, which is still plenty in a Mini.
Yeah, no, definitely, because yes, the amount of torque that thing puts out, I'm sure will make it feel very, very swift. In terms of the you obviously deal solely in classic cars, because you don't really go anything newer than 1985-ish.
So our modus operandi is basically anything from 1980s and older. So early 1980s and older. Basically when plastic became a thing, in dashboards and stuff like that, it loses interest. But that's not 100%. So for instance, Defenders, Land Rover Defenders, they were built up until 2000 and whatever, 13, whatever it was. But they are pretty much, a classic car, because there's nothing really modern in those things. No. And, so we do Defenders. And by the way, it's not because there's, modern computers and ECUs and things in these things. And it's not anything to do with that. It's just a personal preference that I like classic cars. And that's all it's about. Okay. So we've done a 1990 Porsche 944 recently.
Yeah, no, I noticed that.
Which is awesome. I mean, oh my God, is that car good? I mean, I've never driven a Porsche 944 before, and I knew they were good handling, but I never knew how good those cars are. I mean, we've got a Tesla small drive unit in the rear, because it used to be a front engine, rear gearbox, 50-50 weight distribution. And it was the most important thing for me to keep the weight distribution and keep the same weight. So we managed to keep the same weight. I think we ended up being 50 kilos heavier, which is like the weight of a child or whatever. And 50-50 weight distribution. And the Tesla small drive unit in the rear, it just is so smooth, because it's a fairly modernish car, more modern. It's still 30 years old. You've got a little bit of soundproofing in there and a bit of more luxury and stuff, and it just feels more solid and planted on the road, because it's a bit more modern, but also because of the weight distribution, than a 1960s car. And oh my God, it's so good. I've been so impressed with that Porsche 944. It's amazing.
Do you know what? It was something, as soon as I found out that you'd done a 944, and I think one of the comments you made was, the Tesla drive unit fits so nicely in there. I was kicking myself, because that was one of the cars that I was seriously considering to use as the project car. There's lots of different reasons why I went down the TVR route, which is proving quite challenging. So it'd be a challenge you'd like, I'm sure. Moggy, but yeah, it's the 944 is it's a lovely car, and you can still pick them up relatively cheaply as well, which is
I mean, this guy bought his S2 for something like $7,000, I think it was, and it's absolutely mint. It's lovely. But your TVR is going to be more like the Gordon Keeble we've done, which is box section chassis with a fiberglass body on top, and they can be more problematic to convert than normal cars, because box section is all very well and good, but the box section needs to be left alone because of the structural integrity of that chassis is built on the box section. So you can't just say, oh, just chop that bit out there, because that's where the motor no, you need to leave that stuff in, because the torsional rigidity will be affected. So you need to work around the original box section, and that box section would have been designed around an engine. So in the Gordon Keeble, for instance, you had an engine bay, which is, say, from here to about there, but in the middle was this bloody box section bit that went across, and then the engine was kind of like, from there to there, and then from there to there was radiators and fans and things like that. But it would have been lovely to just, done something completely in the middle. We worked all around it and worked out fantastic. But with the box section chassis, you've got things in the way that you can't necessarily remove sometimes.
Don't I know it? So was the Gordon, was that particular car? I always forget how to pronounce. Is it Gordon Keeble? Yeah, I know it's the one with the turtle on the badge.
The tortoise.
Sorry. So was that equally as difficult as the Mini then to package?
No, the Mini was just a big challenge from the packaging point of view. As a Gordon Keeble was, because it's quite a big car anyway, you know, it's much bigger than the TVR. The compromised space was overcome. I mean, the biggest challenge we had in the Gordon Keeble was the fact that from the rear seat backwards, it's all fiberglass. So there's no structure, no metal structure from the rear seat, which is basically where you've got your wheel down here, and the whole, you know, chassis effectively finishes at the rear window. And then from the rear window all the way back to the taillights is just fiberglass. And obviously you've got to put a battery pack in the back somewhere to balance out the weight. So we had to come up with a solution to you know, add some strength to the rear boot area to be able to hang a rear battery pack, you know, down low there. So that was a bit of a challenge, but all the cars we do are challenged. Every one that we've never done before is always a head scratch challenge, which is great. That's what we love.
No, fair enough. So you've obviously got one of, if not the fastest Land Rover Defenders in the world. I don't know if anyone came back to you after your comment on one of the videos to say, has anyone got a faster Defender than me? Did anyone come back to you in the end there? No.
It all went very quiet. No, it's 0 to 60 in, well, 3.8 seconds, and 0 to 60 with the off-road tires on. And I haven't had a go with, because I bought some road tires now, which are less rolling resistance and better handling. So I've got 2 sets of tires, and I'm waiting until the summertime to be able to see if I can get it to 3.5 seconds, which I reckon I can.
Well, I was going to ask you, what is your next electric toy going to be? But based on the channel, I think I've got a bit more of an inkling of what this toy could be. So I did see that someone had put in the comments a name for this particular car.
Oh, is it Buffy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. So going to call it Buffy.
So for the viewers on this video who didn't see it, Buffy the Plaid Slayer, as in the Tesla Plaid, as in the fastest, you know, production car bar the Rimac, isn't it? Pretty much. Oh, where are we going? Where are we going? Cool.
Oh well, you know, I'm gonna have to show you it now.
Oh,
show
brilliant!
You the viewers the car now. So here we are in the workshop again. So it's down here. There you go. Ta-da!
There it is. Yep. I think this thing is going to be absolutely epic. So, and the power is going to be immense on it. So is this going to be on your YouTube channel more so than Vintage Voltage, I'm guessing?
Yeah, this is totally YouTube. So we've got a Tesla Plaid system to put in. So we've got a motor to go in the front and another one to go in the rear, around about there. And then we've got, once the motor's going, we're going to figure out battery packs. So there's probably going to be one battery pack in that sort of area there. Yeah. And some probably in here, down the sides of the seats probably, or possibly underneath the seats yet. I haven't quite figured that out. But
I can imagine when you've got that. Yeah, nice.
Project.
I'm sure once you've got that on the track, you're going to have the biggest smile on your face.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we're going to probably... It's a evenings and weekends job, that. And yeah, I don't know where we're going to race it. Track days and some hill climbs and stuff like that. Might even take it to Pikes Peak over in America.
Oh, wow. I've been lucky enough to go to with a friend of mine who's an engineer, Stuart, who was actually in one of my episodes, funnily enough. He's not come round to the electric side of things as much as, you know, I'm trying to guide him with. But you know, we went to Bonneville and we drove up the Pikes Peak, and I tell you what, just 20 miles an hour driving up Pikes Peak is scary enough. I mean, you look at the speeds that Sebastian Loeb and, you know, the Tesla, can't remember the racing driver for Unplugged Performance. You know, he had that off, didn't he? I forget the name of the driver, but yeah, that's scary stuff. You planning to do it yourself? Go straight up with it?
Nope, I know my limits, and yeah, I'm fairly handy in the car. I mean, you don't do rallying for 7 years without getting pretty handy behind the wheel. But you know, the other thing that happens in rallying is you think you're all that. You know, so you think you're a bloody good driver, you know, always winning at go-karting, etc. And then you go into like a race championship, like, you know, the British Historic Rally Championships and stuff. And you think, oh, here we go, I'm going to trounce everybody. And you start last because you're seeding this, you know, you knew start last. And then you end last. Not just last, but you end like minutes behind the next person. You think, okay, I'm not all that then. so now I know my limits. I've got another driver signed onto the project that's going to be racing up the strip for me, up the hill for me. So
wow,
yeah.
Well, next time you're at Santa Pod, Moggy, it's literally I can hear the Top Fuel dragsters from my house.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I'm literally just down the road from Santa Pod.
Oh, well, I'm going to be going to Santa Pod in, I can't remember when, but definitely a few times in the summer. I'm going to take the Beetle down there. I want to take my bus up there because my bus is pretty stupid power as well. So I'll probably take my bus up there and the Land Rover. So I'll give you a shout next time I'm at Santa Pod.
Yeah, please do. Please do. Something that I've come across as a bit of a mega challenge with the TVR are chassis mods, because I didn't fully understand it myself, about, you know, the do's and don'ts and what is legal in terms of being able to put a car on the road from the point system. Can you give us a kind of a summary of your experience and what's the best way of going about converting an EV conversion to make sure you can make it legal?
Yeah. So in the UK, there's an 8-point system run for the DVLA on what's called radically altered vehicles. So if you are modifying a vehicle, doesn't matter if it's electric or putting a V8 in the Mini, basically the point system still stands. Yeah. 8 points is the limit, if you like. And if you are you know, either side of, if you're one side of that 8-point limit, and essentially you will need to get that car, like, I think at least IVA tested, from what I remember. But you know, we avoid it anyway, so I've never had to do it, because one of the biggest items on there is the chassis, and that's worth 5 points. So if you change the engine, it's like 1 point. If you change the gearbox, it's like 1 point. You know, so very quickly with an EV conversion, for instance, you can get up to like 3, maybe 4 points. But if you start modifying the engine, modifying the chassis, then okay, I think literally instantly you're going to be over, because you've already done the engine and the gearbox, and then you've done something to the chassis. Well, now, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, you just need to then, it's not as if you won't be able to drive the vehicle. It's just all of a sudden now your path has become a bit more difficult, because now it's got to go for, you know, an IVA check, and you might end up with a Q plate on the car as well.
Funny enough, I went into this detail. I don't fully understand it, and this is why I wanted to speak to yourself about it, because I think a lot of people don't realise, and I didn't at the time. I was thinking, do you know what? We'll take the rear subframe of a Tesla Model 3 and we'll weld it up. You know, we'll attach, weld, make sure it's safe against the rear chassis of the TVR. But you know, that's a massive no-no. You know, it can't be. Yes, in America you can do it. And it's just going on track. That's absolutely fine. But I think there's a lot of people that might start getting into EV conversions that it'd be nice for them to know this early doors, I think, because then that will make sure they're going and being steered in the right direction.
So on your TVR, you're going to have, it's front engined rear wheel drive. So you're going to have like a rear diff in the rear there somewhere. But it probably won't be enough space once you take that diff out to be able to put a motor up there. Some cars it is, like in the Porsche 914, Porsche 944. When we took that rear transaxle out, there was lots of space to put a Tesla small drive unit up there. And also on the BMW E9 that we did, when we took the rear diff out, there was loads of space there, and we offered up a Tesla motor and thought, yeah, that'll fit. So on some cars you can do it, but again, going back to the fact that yours is a box section welded chassis, what's probably happened is you've got your diff there, and then there's probably a box section going this way, very close there. So it's all going to be very tight. So you're probably best off going and leaving the rear diff in place, reusing the prop and putting your motor and a gear reduction unit up front in the gearbox tunnel.
Well, that may or may not be something that we might be doing, Moggy, but I don't want to spoil it for spoil it for anyone watching the build.
Yeah, what you'll need, actually, I've got it on the floor out here, but I wouldn't use a Hyper 9 because it won't be powerful enough.
No.
But what you'll need, it's over there. So you'll have something that will essentially look like this down on the floor here.
I love getting my own personal tour of electric classic cars. This is brilliant.
Hang on, I can't hear, it's a bit noisy now.
That's right.
There you go. So that is essentially, hold the laptop, that's a gear reduction unit there.
Yeah.
And then a Class 2, a Hyper 9. So this goes straight on to the prop.
Yeah, try.
Will fit in where the old gearbox used to be.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, we may or may not be doing something similar, but yeah, power is, and this is something that people like myself and yourself who are into something that's a bit more powerful than a Hyper 9 motor will realize that the number of motors on the market to be able to do that arrangement, but with high power like a Tesla motor, there's not that many out there. And the ones that are out there are very expensive.
Very expensive, yeah. So you'll have axial flux type motors, like the Avid one, and like the Koenigsegg have just released one as well. That they've
I saw that. Yeah, I know that there are motors coming. You know, my ideal is to keep it all UK based because I want to, you know, not only promote EV conversions and try and get more petrol heads to be charge heads, you know, into electric cars, but also support the business in the UK, because I think that's really important, you know, because we are a nation of engineers, you know, want to keep that going, you know, and it obviously reduces the old CO2 footprint when, you know, don't ideally want motors flown over from all parts of the world if possible.
What's the weight of the TVR? Like
it's about 1,400.
And then by the time you've added batteries and stuff, it's going to be back up to 1,400, maybe 1,500.
Yeah.
So you're going to need a motor which is around about a minimum, I'd say, of about 200 kilowatts if you're going to direct drive it.
Yeah.
So 200 kilowatts to, you know, say, well, and upwards, let's say, depends how much power you want to get. But the fact that with a gear reduction unit, you've got essentially just one gear, which means that it's like leaving the you know, your car in fourth gear, you know, a one-to-one gear, you know, so leave it in fourth gear and start in fourth gear and go all the way up. So you might think, you know, oh well, you know, a 200 horsepower motor will be fine. Well, you know, you've got to bear in mind that's going to take you all the way from 0 RPM and 0 miles an hour all the way up to, like, you know, a cruising speed, let's say, of 70 miles an hour, and then further up if you wanted it to. So you need a motor which has got the RPM and the legs, if you like, to take you up to top speed, but equally the torque from bottom end that will also go up. So a Hyper 9, for instance, falls on its nose torque-wise at around about 4,000 RPM. And I think horsepower-wise, it's all done by around about 6,000 RPM. Although it revs up to 8, basically, there's not much between 6 and 8.
Right.
So, you know, you've got to pick a motor which has a nice torque curve, flat, literally as long as you can, and then drops down. And hopefully you can find one that's, say, 12,000 RPM max, 200 kilowatts is probably what you're aiming for there.
Yeah, and you know, the whole idea is just to make something comparable to the TVR Griffith. This is why I started it in the first place. I wanted something to I suppose, replace the Griffith, and the Griffith is 306 brake horsepower at something like 6,000 revs and 350 newton meters of torque. So it's pretty punchy, and that only weighs a ton. So, but yeah, that's the challenges we're having fun with at the moment, me and Ralph. So yeah.
No, you're in safe hands with Ralph. He's a good man.
Yeah, he's a good chap. So yeah, a question. This is one from my engineering buddy, who I'm trying to get more into electric cars. Every time I start talking about electric cars, he's like, "No, hydrogen's the future," or you know. And I'm thinking, first of all, I think aren't hydrogen cars electric cars anyway? But what's your thoughts to the future of electric?
I find that people haven't quite grasped the fact that electric cars are not just the future; they're here now. They like to grasp a soundbite that they've heard from the man down the pub or read in the Daily Mail or whatever, and grab that soundbite as the reason why they're not going to go electric. And a lot of them are going, "Oh, hydrogen," without doing any research whatsoever, like hydrogen, because it's just water that comes out of the exhaust pipe. What?
Synthetic fuels. A lot of people are holding on to synthetic fuels, aren't they?
Synthetic fuels have been around since the 70s and still aren't anywhere close to being a solution. But again, people love resistance to change, and like they like to come up with very simple soundbite reasons as to why they're not following the sheep. And like, well, first of all, they're not sheep. We need to change and not be burning stuff, as good old Robert Llewellyn says.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hydrogen takes 3 times more electricity to make to go the same distance as just putting that electricity directly into a motor. By the time you've made that hydrogen, which by the way, most hydrogen comes from fossil fuel production.
Yeah.
But let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they've magically solved the solution for making green hydrogen, which nobody has really yet, despite lots of press things. The other thing is, it's like a new battery's been invented, and like no, it hasn't.
QuantumScape done a solid state battery.
That's somebody that's basically fishing around for investment for his company, and he says he's got the next new thing in batteries, and then you won't hear from that again for 5 years. And that's the same sort of thing for a lot of these technologies. So with hydrogen, one of the problems you've got is one of production. So it takes a lot of electricity to make hydrogen, and then you've got to distribute it. So it's a copy-paste business model for the petroleum industry, because essentially refineries now turn into hydrogen refineries. You've got the transportation then from the refineries to the petrol stations, or now hydrogen stations, and then you've got to put the hydrogen then in the vehicle. So the petroleum industry loves it, because essentially it's just a copy-paste overlay for their existing business model.
Yeah.
The main problems I have with hydrogen is it takes a lot of electricity to make the hydrogen. And as I mentioned before, most of that hydrogen is a byproduct of the petroleum refinement processes anyway. You have to compress hydrogen. So hydrogen, if you remember in the school days, was one of the lightest gases. You put it in a balloon and you go upwards. Now that means that it's a very, very light gas. You have to compress that hydrogen down to an extraordinary amount. I mean, it's thousands, if not tens of thousands of PSI that you have to pressurize that. And hydrogen is, one of those gases that it likes to explode. To name one example, the Hindenburg, you know what I mean? So, hydrogen is a gas that is highly flammable, likes to explode. And when you compress it down as well, then basically that's something that now really wants to expand. So I have safety concerns over hydrogen because of that as well, because of the pressures that this stuff's under. And then the other problem that you have that a lot of people don't understand is the same people that say, oh, batteries are bad because what are you going to do with the batteries once they're all used up, and it comes from cobalt mining dug up by children in Congo, etc., etc. They're the same people that say hydrogen is the future, not knowing that a hydrogen car is essentially an electric car with motors, with batteries, and you just got a hydrogen generator on board. And
but they're probably commenting on their electric phone, which has had cobalt in it for the batteries on that in the first place anyway.
Yeah, so that's a pouch cell. So that's got around about 15% cobalt in it. And your typical EV battery has less than 2% cobalt in. But the other thing that they don't realize at the moment is cobalt is starting to get dropped out of EV batteries because of LFP module. So LFP is lithium iron phosphate.
Yeah, the new battery, the new Tesla Model 3s, isn't it?
Yeah, so the prismatic cells are going into Model 3s in China, but also in the US now as well. And also Ford and Volkswagen are also starting to do LFP batteries, and they are 0 nickel and 0 cobalt, which, you know, I'm sure the naysayers will find another reason now because the cobalt reason's gone.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But they'll find something else.
Yeah.
But now hydrogen's been and gone for cars, and you know it's an easy thing for people to try to think, oh no, hydrogen diffuser because water just comes out the tailpipe. You just put hydrogen into the engine, and an engine can work on hydrogen. No, it can't. I mean, you can get a hydrogen combustion engine. JCB are developing it, for instance, but the energy density of that hydrogen is, I think it's like 1/3 of petrol. So the amount of power you get is a lot less. And it's not as simple as just putting hydrogen into a petrol engine. The whole engine needs to be completely redesigned to be able to combust that hydrogen in the first place. And then you're still stuck with the whole main problem of hydrogen, which is how to make the bloody stuff.
Yeah. And transport it is, of course, is quite, well, very difficult as well. But it's funny, you know, you mentioned there about the power density, which was on your, again, another recent video you've put out on YouTube, which was really good, actually. I really enjoyed that. And it was so powerful, you know, you showing the Hyper 9 NetGain Hyper 9 motor versus the equivalent ICE engine, petrol diesel engine, like the size difference and the efficiencies that you go through. I think it's just, you know, it's highlighting these benefits and schooling people a little bit more. It's real powerful stuff. Just need to get it out there a little bit more, don't we? But
well, that's the problem. I mean, it's one of educating people because it's new technology, and if people don't want to seem as if they're stupid, and so they'll act as if they kind of know from a soundbite that they've heard somewhere. Because it's kind of band-aiding over the fact that they don't really know because they haven't, you know, it's not common knowledge. And the more we can kind of like, you know, not educate because that sounds patronizing, but the more we can just, you know, bring into the public domain the facts, just the cold facts, simple facts, the better.
I was trying to find a word that wasn't schooling, to be honest, but it was failing me. Apologies for that, everyone. We're talking about, you know, electric being the future, because I work for a VAG dealer group. I can tell you that, you know, every single electric VAG car to factory order is pretty much next year now. I've actually ordered a new car, but I was interested if you had to order a new electric car, which was available now, available to order, let's say. Let's not worry about when it gets delivered. Have you got a car that you would go, do you know what, that is the electric car I'd buy right now?
A Rivian.
Okay.
The reason being is because we could use it for delivering the vehicles, you know, long distance. So at the moment,
the barbecue set that you can pull out.
Yeah. Well, I got that on my bus. In the engine bay. So in the engine bay on my green bus, it's now a storage space, and that's where we put our barbecue. But because it's so big, we've actually got a bloody big barbecue thing, and again, it pulls out like a drawer. So
do you know what you said about it being pulled out? Remind me of Paul Compton, who I went to go and see on Sunday. He sent me a video of the Microdot.
Paul Compton, that's the name I recognise. Who's Paul Compton?
He's the chap that did the Volkswagen Scirocco about 20 years ago, 15 years ago. He sent me a video of the Microdot, which is this 3-seater Gordon Murray design. It was a hybrid, but it had like a little 50cc motor. It was an electric car, and it had this trolley that you like use your shopping, and then you just push it into the back, and it clips in. It was I've never seen it in my life. I'm gonna have to post it on Chargeheads socials because it's very funky. It does kind of look really cool, like a lot of things from the 70s, of course. I don't know if you know, have you ever heard of an aerial BSA Aerial 3 before? Little scooter? No. I'm doing an EV conversion on a 1970s scooter, which we believe, or most people believe, put BSA out of business. But I thought that might be quite an interesting conversion because it's got pedals. So I was going to turn it into an e-bike. So
cool.
which,
I mean, we did the Royal Enfield conversion a few years back.
Oh,
and
wow.
that again was an interesting conversion. I mean, we used a hub motor, which we'd never used hub motors before. We crammed in 10 kilowatt hours of battery, which was good for 100-mile range. Kept the same weight as the original car. So yeah, that was a good little project. So
it's I just wanted a smaller conversion that I could try and cut my teeth on, because as you may already know, my conversion skills aren't really up to much, but my passion overflows to make up for it, I hope.
But you got to understand, my conversion skills were zero before I did my first conversion. So you're in the same boat.
No excuse.
You're in the same boat as everybody else that does their first conversion. Everybody has the first conversion that they do, and after that it becomes a bit easier, but that first conversion is always the hardest. But if you do it right, it's one of the best ones, because essentially, if like me, you've got OCD around getting the details right, you will plan it to the nth degree, and then you will execute it correctly, and you'll wait until you got the right parts, do it, etc., etc. And that's the best way to do it. The worst way to do it is just plow straight in, do the wiring, cable tie over there, and make a right old pig's ear of it, or as we call it in the UK, a Heath Robinson job of it. That's the worst way to do it, because you can't afford to do that with an EV conversion because of the safety aspects of it.
Absolutely, and this is something that is very close to me, to make sure that people are doing things safely, because there are a lot of DIY builds out there. Funnily enough, I was watching quite a few last night. And they vary in quality massively. Is there anything that you could say to obviously you're a DIY convert yourself in the very beginning? Is there anything that you would advise, or any recommendations you give to those DIYers from a safety point of view?
Be safe, in short. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable working on high voltage that will kill you, don't do it.
No.
I mean, from the off, don't do it, because petrol's dangerous, but everybody's learned over the last 100-odd years not to weld a petrol tank, or not to smoke and have a naked flame next to petrol. So everybody's learned over the last 100 years how to, address the safety aspects of petrol, which is dangerous. I mean, there's no getting away. Petrol's also very dangerous, very flammable, and likes to explode. But everybody knows how to deal with it. But with electric, it's kind of invisible. You don't know that touching that and that at the same time is going to kill you, but it will. So if you are not familiar and comfortable with working with high voltage that will kill you, do not attempt it, is my simple and cold truth on the matter. And then if you are going to attempt it, do your research, buy your safety PPE, your gloves and everything, get trained up. So go on a course with, I think Ralph does them, and Chris down at Zero EV does them. Go on a course to learn how to do it. Don't try and just watch some YouTubes and think you're an expert.
No.
Plan it properly, do it safely, and don't follow the American videos. There are a number of them that seriously worry me. Not for themselves, because if they kill themselves, that's their own deal. But if they put that on YouTube and other people watching go, all right, so that's the way to do it. And me, as a professional converter, I'm just going, what are you doing? That is not a good idea. You see things like open terminals. I saw a car in SEMA, and essentially all the high voltage was on show in the boot. And it wasn't because it was on show because it's a show car. It was on show because that's how the conversion was done.
Did you manage to get to SEMA?
No, I saw it online.
Okay.
And you had all the contactors and all the high voltage, 400 bloody volts, all on show. And not in enclosures, not in any IP rated like enclosures whatsoever, all on show in the boot. And the battery box in the front, the lid was Perspex. And again, it wasn't for show. That's how he built it. And I'm thinking, Christ, if that was in an accident, not even the smallest of accident, having a Perspex lid is just a disaster. And I've seen battery boxes, DIY battery boxes held in with a ratchet strap before. And that was one that was actually closer to home on this side of the Atlantic. Right. And, you know, so if you don't feel comfortable around a high voltage and you don't get trained up and you don't plan it well and you don't do your conversion to a high safety standard, just don't attempt it. It's just not worth your risk of your life or others if you build something like that.
Plus, you're going to probably ruin it for the rest of the whole scene as well, because if an accident like that happens, I'm pretty sure that powers that be will be looking a bit more closely on things. But
we're pushing regulatory change already in the UK. I mean, converters like us, and Chris down at Zero EV as well, and David Lorenz over at Lunaz. We're pushing the government to have regulatory change to make sure that we have to build, and when I say we, everybody, DIYers, conversion shops, everybody has to build to a set safety set of regulations, because at the moment it's not really there. So that means that we can build things to a very high standard from the safety aspects, but also the standard of the build full stop. And then you'll have a conversion shop that will build, quite frankly, a death trap, and they will sell it to an unsuspecting customer who a few weeks later will burn down his garage because some setting or some high voltage cutoff or whatever on the charger, something doesn't do what it's supposed to do, or wasn't even designed there in the first place, and there will be a big incident. So we want to get regulatory change done before an incident like that happens. So it's done in an intelligent way rather than a knee-jerk reaction, which is the wrong way to do it.
Absolutely. And any support you need on that, I'm very much all for that, very much so. On a slightly lighter note, have you got anyone in, because I know you've got quite a customer queue at the moment, quite a waiting list. Are there any?
68 cars in the queue.
68. Wow. Was that 18-month wait, maybe?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Bloody hell. So are there any TVRs in that queue?
Don't know, actually. Let me have a look. We got.
Are there any interesting cars that you can share? Say, oh, we've got this one coming through.
Oh, I'll just shout a few out as I go down. So what we got? E-types, midgets, minis, Land Rovers, Fiat 500s, Range Rovers, 911s, Jensen Interceptors, Ferrari Mondials, Beetles, Porsches, Fiat 600s, more Land Rovers, Testarossas, minis again, Porsches, Land Rovers again, Triumphs, more Land Rovers, BMW 02, more Porsches, Mercedes SL, Pagoda, Land Rover, Porsche, VW Type 2. So no TVRs. What's that up there? No TVRs, I'm afraid.
Any no Hillman Imps yet?
No Hillman Imps.
Okay, and as you know that I'm doing the TVR conversion. Have you got any advice? I mean, we've actually already spoken about the advice in terms of motors and where to put them and space constrictions. Have you got any questions about charge heads or any questions about the wedgie build at all?
Yeah, the only thing I'd say in addition to the motor side of things is the first port of call when you're doing conversion is corner weighted. So you want to know how much weight is on the vehicle, full stop. So, and if the tank isn't full, just get some sandbags to represent a full tank of fuel, corner weight the vehicle, and that'll give you an idea what the total weight of the vehicle is, but also how much weight there is front to back. So what's the axle weight, if you like. So that's what you're then aiming for when you do the conversion. Yeah. So when you take the next step then is to take all the dirty, smelly stuff out. So take the engine, the gearbox, petrol tank, everything that you're going to be removing, and leave what's going to be remaining still on the car. corner weight it again. So that then tells you, okay, that means I can put back 350 kilos on the front axle and maybe 80 kilos on the rear axle, etc., to get it back up to what it used to be. So that then gives you an idea of how many batteries you're going to put in the front, in the rear, etc., etc. So that's kind of the first port of call, is corner weight the vehicle and give you your baseline, if you like, as to how many you're going to put on. And then from there, you then got to decide what sort of spec, if you like, you're going to build this to. Charging, for instance, so you're going to have 7 kilowatts, 21 kilowatts, CCS, etc. Because then that will determine, what charging systems you're going to be putting on, where the chargers are going to go. And obviously, if you're going to go CCS, then it determines what BMS and CCS controller you're going to use. Thermal management as well. You're going to need cooling on your batteries.
Yep.
Cooling on your motor. Where you're going to put those radiators. Are you going to have a split radiator at the front, or are you going to put 2 radiators somewhere? 2 different systems, obviously, that you can't put the same coolant through the battery as through the motor, because the motor runs at this temperature, batteries like to be down here. So don't mix and match the coolant system, which I saw another DIYer do, which is crazy. So
right.
You're going to have like your motor and inverter running at, say, 40 odd degrees, 40, 50 degrees in the summer, and all that coolant is going through your batteries, which is just ridiculous. So don't do that.
No.
Just to be clear. Don't
Good
do
advice.
that.
I like that one.
That won't end well. So so the immovable objects is where you start with your motor, your battery packs, and then you kind of build it up from there, kind of like, chargers, DC converters, where you're going to put the 12-volt battery, etc. 12-volt battery can be a lot smaller, obviously, because you don't need the cranking amps.
No.
So you can put like a small motorbike battery in, or even a lithium-based battery, which are really light. And you just, it's a step-by-step process from there, really, but that's the kind of the starting steps of it.
Well, I'm hoping that we do get some more progress once we've worked out the challenges myself and Ralph are facing at the moment. But I mean, the last question I've got, Moggy, and again, thank you so much for your time, is what's the next show, and where can we find electric classic cars next?
Well, Vintage Voltage Season 2 is getting aired right now on Quest.
Full swing, yes. Awesome.
So
yeah, really enjoying it.
2 episodes so far have already gone out, which is the 911 episode, Tesla drive unit 911. That was a crazy fast car. And last week was the DeLorean, which is a really cool build. That was that was a car that was shouting to be converted to electric from the factory. And this week, actually tomorrow, is the Mini.
Yeah.
Is going to be cool.
I'm well up to speed with it, Moggy. I'm all over the Mini conversion episode tomorrow. But yeah, no, I know that certainly myself and any other EV conversion enthusiast is very interested. Even my uncle was emailing me the other day, who's a big Corvette, and he's really into his kind of NASCAR. He started watching it as well, and with interest, because he's a keen.
I mean, from an EV conversion perspective, I wanted it to be really deep tech. I wanted it to be literally like 90% battery packs, us doing bus bars and BMS wiring, and all about the conversions and the mechanics and the fabrication and all that, the details. But unfortunately, Discovery, and probably rightly so, would have thought we would be too niche then and lose most of the audience. So, I would have preferred more electrical conversion content in it, for those that are out there thinking, oh, if only there was more electrical content or whatever. That's the problem. If it was up to me, there would be. It'd be 100%. But for the mass market out there that are watch wheeler dealers and also Gas Monkey and that lot, you have to cater for everybody. So that's why there's a little bit of electric, a little bit of fabrication, a little bit of upholstery, and a little bit of everything in there. But for season 3, I'm pushing it to be more and more electric conversions, and let's concentrate on more tech. That's one of the reasons why I started the YouTube stuff with the tech talks, because I felt that the tech isn't getting into the episodes. So that's why the YouTube is more technically orientated, because I want the tech corner that I wanted in my episodes wasn't happening. So, but I think in season 3, we'll probably see that a bit more. But yeah, the rest of the cars, what we got? We got a BMW Isetta, And it's still, if you think the Mini is small, a BMW Isetta was even smaller. We've got a BMW E9 CSL recreation, that is an awesome car, but an awesome episode, because you see it transform all the way from a basket case when it came in, right the way through to this amazing show quality, fast as a rocket car, split screen, VW split screen camper, that Porsche 944 episode. There's loads of more really interesting cars that we got coming up, including the Gordon Keeble and others.
Yeah, excellent. And are you going to be at the NEC at the? There's a show, I think, in end of March. It's one of the classic car shows. Are you guys going to be at that, or are you guys a bit busy?
I don't know which shows we're at. This year, I know we're at Fully Charged live, and I know we're at Goodwood Revival. I think we're doing. But which other shows I don't know. John books all those now. But
yeah, I went to Goodwood Revival last year with my wife, and I tell you what, it's the best car show I've ever been to.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I like dressing up. That's what it is.
Yeah, we were dressed up as tank mechanics.
Oh, cool. I don't think I did spot you there. I saw a tank though. Did you bring it along with you, or was that...
No. We didn't have a stand there. We were just sussing it out for this year, and so we went as guests of Michelin down there, and we had a great old time.
No, brilliant. Well, thanks again, Moggy. Thanks for the your time today and answering these questions. And anyone that wants to ask questions of Moggy, I think you're having a Q&A session, as I mentioned earlier. So get involved and get on the comments on YouTube. But thanks once again. I'll leave you to crack on with all those many conversions you've got.
No worries, mate. All right. Cheers, Tim.
Right, take care. Be good.
You'll have to come over at some point, mate.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, when it warms up a bit, I'll jump in the camper and come down to you for sure.
Cool.
All right, mate. Take care. All the best.
See you, mate.